Hey everyone, this is Dan from the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight and Three Heads Brewing. Today I'm sitting down with Kyle Vock, the Rochester resident for the month of October and a little bit of September, if you didn't already know that show. He's putting on a total of 5 concerts, but he's doing it in a bit of a different style, so we wanted to sit down here, chat with Kyle, see what's up. Dude, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into all of the crazy weeks you have planned, let's start off nice and easy. Are you a Rochester native?
I am not a Rochester native.
Where are you from?
I'm from upstate New York. I'd like to think of it as the forehead of New York State, up by the Thousand Islands region.
I've never heard the forehead of New York State before. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, how did you come from the forehead of New York State to about the brow level of New York
To the brow?
State? Yeah, of Rochester.
Well, I think grad school obviously brought me to Rochester. I studied at the Eastman School of Music to get a master's degree in jazz performance, to study the upright bass.
Right.
So that's kind of what brought me here, and then just a busy freelancing schedule as a performer and a little bit of teaching has kind of kept me here.
Gotcha. So, when you were growing up, were you in a musical household? What kind of music was on when you were younger?
You know, no one else in my family, immediate family, were musicians, but we had a lot of stuff playing. I remember messing around with my parents' turntable as a kid, and we had a lot of variety of music playing in the house all the time, and especially because my older brother, who's about 4 years older, played a lot of stuff that kind of paved the way for what I was going to listen to. Just helped me keep a curious ear, I think, throughout my childhood about music until I got into it later.
So, what was there anything particular that really grabbed your attention that made you want to pursue music, or is it just kind of a slow developing thing?
Well, it was a bit of everything, but I think later on it was the mystery of improvisation. Kind of hearing what people could do when they soloed, and how there was mystery around that because, there were the rules of that seemed like a total mystery to me. So
right.
I think that was the biggest motivation later on once I got into understanding the mechanics of how to listen to music.
Right. So what drew you to the sexy instrument known as upright bass?
The hips? No. I always joke with people. I mean, if the flute sounded like that, I'd be lucky because I would get to carry around a little briefcase.
Yeah, it would be nice.
I was lucky enough to have a band director in high school that had an upright, so I had already played a little electric, and was curious about the thing. So I had a chance late in high school to at least try it, and I think that, I think it was early guidance. I had some really good music teachers that really helped steer me into that direction.
So, just to be totally clear, you started upright bass in late high school and then ended up getting a doctorate degree?
Master's degree.
Master's degree, that's right. That's still pretty impressive. Good on you, man.
Thank you.
I'm late coming to the upright bass myself. I started off on trombone and picked it up in college. So there is something very appealing about it. So I totally understand that. Talk to me more about your time in Rochester. You said Eastman brought you here, and the freelance scene has kept you here. One of the really cool things about this residency is for audiences to see not just like, we love John Sheffer, but you see John Sheffer's face because he's in front of a lot of bands.
Oh yeah, he's everywhere.
He is everywhere. But here's the thing, you're everywhere too, but you're not in the front of everything. So this is a really cool opportunity for audiences to get to know some of the side people on all these really cool projects. So for those who don't know, tell us some of the projects that you're in.
Well, a couple of my favorite and I think most original groups that I'm a part of. The first and the most longevity would have to be the Mighty High and Dry, which is a group that was formed by myself and Alan Murphy, and it kind of revolves around the fact that when I met Alan, he had a heck of a lot of stuff he had already written, and Chris Thiel and I sort of got with him and sort of said, hey, maybe we should record this. And so there's that group, which is very exciting because it's really taken on a lot of different shapes over the years, and I think that we're bigger and stronger than ever.
Right.
And so that's a huge anchor that's made me want to stay here, and just and continue to pursue all that. And another group would be the Rita Collective, which is kind of caters to another musical fix, and I always like to call it that because there's
really good.
Lots of different variety and different ways that these projects can kind of be rewarding. So that has been fun as sort of an original, more of a jazz and completely instrumental kind of take on original music. And our sort of fearless leader, Dean Keller, has dove into some really cool Middle Eastern music that's been given us sort of a world jazz vibe, if you will, in addition to the instrumentation. So.
Right. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Rita Collective. They are featured on one of Kyle's weeks. They are also Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight alumni. So we love talking about.
Yes.
We love talking about the Rita Collective. Also, Quintupus shout out. You always got to take the Quintupus shout
Chris
out.
Steele, yeah.
Yeah, and Mike
Quintupus
Frederick.
and Mike Frederick, yeah.
Yeah, it's like half Quintupus. It's like you got half the five tentacles.
I still have a Quintupus for Mayor button from a show at
I'm really jealous. So. I might have to get one of those from you. You also know Kyle. He's done so many residency shows. It's been really cool to see. You've been in sort of the house band lineup that some of these awesome tribute shows, the Fleetwood Mac show, Crystal Ship Band, which did the Doors album for Alan Murphy's residency. We'll talk more about that one as well. So for you, I mean, I know you're involved in a lot of different projects, but what has it been like taking the Three Heads stage and playing these like crazy shows with great turnout and take a lot of preparation? What's the experience been like?
It's been a ton of fun, and I think the concept of it is way different than the actual feeling of having played one of those shows and really and just wrapping yourself in that music. I think that there's something to be said about the immersion of it and how you can really and that the point isn't to just become a copycat, but I think that that's really the way to respect music to the highest degree, is to really digest it to the point where you've sort of memorized it or internalized it.
Right.
And so I'm lucky enough to get to sort of do a little bit of that with the Nazareth College Rock Ensemble. Every week we kind of rehearse songs that are already written, mostly. Right. And so, yeah, and playing the shows at Three Heads is great because the energy is really high, and it's just a fun room because there's a lot of musical family there, I guess you could say at this point.
That is nice. It's a very comfortable environment, and as we say, the beer is not bad.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Even though we said that Kyle is the October resident, he's starting things off pretty early. John Sheffer was extremely kind to donate one of his Thursday shows. And his ended up being on Friday, but he still gave you the all-important Thursday. If you don't already know about this show, as one Facebook commenter said, is this even real?
Is this even real?
We can confirm this is real. John Medeski's Mad Skillet, which makes you then say, but wait, Kyle's not in that band. So here's what Kyle is doing differently. I'll let him explain a little bit more, but he's basically bringing in bands. So using Medeski as this little peg here, why did you want to take this angle of your residency as opposed to the playing angle of it?
Well, I think it was two reasons. The first being, really just wanting to try to learn a new skill set. As a performing musician, and as a bass player who I think people joke about bass players never getting their own gigs. We're pretty lucky. You just wait for the phone to ring. So to try to get my own gigs, I've never been savvy at that sort of thing. And in addition, I knew I would learn a ton about booking, national acts in a room that is the smallest room in Rochester where you can see national acts.
Right.
So,
what are you trying to do with this booking experience that maybe someone else booking these shows with? What are some points of emphasis for you?
I think the biggest point of emphasis is knowing how I would want to be treated, at a show. If I were playing a gig. There are certain things that have been frustrating, having to wonder about certain things, are we going to be fed? Is there going to be, what's the guarantee? How much are you advertising for it? Are you going to make sure that nobody corners, the artist and bugs them for an autograph and that sort of thing? So I think really trying to get these shows to be at the highest level by keeping the guest musicians as comfortable as possible.
Mm-hmm. And that's been the main goal.
Yeah.
Awesome. So he's brought in some really heavy hitters. We'll get to all of them. But again, let's start with John Medeski's Mad Skillet. In case there's anyone who doesn't know, who's John Medeski and why did you want to bring in this band?
Well, John Medeski, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, you could look it up on All About Jazz, but is one of the best jazz organists, I think, in the world, and has definitely been an extremely creative, versatile keyboardist as part of the pioneering jazz experimental trio, Medeski, Martin, and Wood. And I was following those guys around in college as somebody who was still seeking out the mystery of improvisation. I still am now. So I think that was the basis, is I've always been a huge fan of his work, and he's on some of my favorite records. John Scofield's album A Go-Go features Medeski, Martin, and Wood. And John Medeski took some solos on there that I could sing back to you. I've listened to it that much, so
we won't pressure him. By the way,
no, I'm not.
You don't actually have to sing it for us. You're okay. So I mean, like, holy moly, and I'm sure this is replicable for the other bands you have on here. So I won't ask you every single time, but like, you have this idea. It's a crazy one. How did it feel when he said yes and he was going to do it?
Extremely exciting and rewarding. I think that it was exciting to even get an email back. And if I haven't mentioned before, I started kind of brainstorming this back in January. I kind of came to Jeff and asked him about it, and then I sort of just was literally sort of sitting at the computer on weird gray, January days, just going, what could we do? What could I do, and who could we get, and who will actually talk to me? But what's great is having a place that has my back, like Three Heads, that already has all that stuff, kind of set up, has been awesome for me to sort of latch onto and say, hey, we could get you to come in. So, it's just been a lot of people kind of working together to help me do this, it's just been a really fun ride so far, and a lot of emailing.
It's a lot of emailing. Quickly, before we go on to the next week, what is different about Medeski, Martin, and Wood versus the Mad Skillet project?
Okay, so Medeski, Martin, and Wood is experimental jazz trio with upright bass, Billy Martin on drums, and John Medeski on organ. The Mad Skillet is a group that was birthed out of a late-night jam session at the New Orleans Jazz Festival. So you can expect a lot more of a New Orleans flavor and a lot more funk. And so instead of a normal bass player, we've got a fella named Kirk Joseph who plays a sousaphone through a bass amp. So it'll definitely be...
more tuba, the better.
Yeah, so it'll be not only an audio feast, but a visual one as well, I think, for people that have never seen something like that with that kind of fun, festive sort of energy.
Awesome. So let's move on to the October shows, starting off first week of October, October 3rd, William Tyler. Who is this? Tell us about him.
Okay, so William Tyler is a tremendous guitarist and very versatile musician and even producer who I discovered through I think my brother actually. He listens to I think more music than I do really, but he was based out of Nashville, and I think his parents were songwriters in Nashville. And he, has a couple of, I think 3 or 4 records out under his own name. And his last one is entitled Goes West, and it's all, kind of solo guitar compositions, all instrumental. And it's just really fantastic stuff. It features Bill Frisell on a track, and Meg Duffy from Hand Habits. And so I think it's going to bring a totally different vibe to Three Heads, and definitely more of a solo kind of acoustic show, but his stuff is just really, really good stuff.
Is he a finger-picking guy, for those who don't know? Or is
yeah, definitely. Yep. And so you're going to hear all that kind of stuff. And there's a local, there's a local guitar group that I've tried to turn on to that, and I hope that they come too. But we have a really special guest opening that show too. So that's going to be a really exciting night. I'm super excited about that. And that was, believe it or not, the last one that kind of came to fruition. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Awesome. That'll also be nice for me to record because it's one microphone. So that'll be good. Me and Hakeem or Jesse or Zach, whoever it is, we'll have a chance to breathe a little bit. And we appreciate that. I know a guy on that guitar club, by the way, so we'll talk about that. Okay, moving on to the next week, the 10th. The last name might be a little familiar to some, Amy Helm. In case anyone who doesn't know, who's Amy Helm?
Amy Helm is a tremendous singer, and she leads a band that's based out of Woodstock. And I finally went to a show at Levon Helm Studios last March, and I didn't get a chance to meet her, but I brought a case of Three Heads beer and some tie-dyed shirts, and I think we won over their hearts. Yeah. Because she's bringing her band up for a show on October 10th. Amazing. And as somebody who I've had so much joy from the music of the band, and obviously her father being Levon Helm. That was an exciting connection, but I think it was, once I checked out her music and and sort of started to dig deeper. I learned so much about her career and the fact that, you know, she sang on Two Against Nature by Steely Dan. For those of you who don't know that, I thought that was a pretty neat fact.
That is.
But yeah, she has a new album that came out, it's about a year old now, entitled This Too Shall Light.
It's a great record.
Yeah, it's a great record, and I've been listening to that. That's stayed in my car the last few months, so I'm really excited about that. And she's going to play mandolin and sing, so
Very exciting.
again, a little bit more of a kind of an Americana vibe there, rootsy vibe on that.
Yeah, she's a very nice combination of Americana rock and gospel feel. This is not a religious show, folks. Don't you worry. But you will be uplifted, I promise. Moving on to the next week, Futurebirds.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Futurebirds are a rowdy bunch out of Athens, Georgia, and I'm really excited about exposing them to a show up in upstate because I don't know if they've been this far upstate. You know, they just did a festival down south and got a great review from Rolling Stone. I posted it on the Facebook event page, but Rolling Stone says that they're one of the most captivating rock acts that's touring today. And they have really, really great vocals, you know, 4-part harmonies and, you know, indie melodies that are kind of, there's definitely just a southern rock vibe to it all, though, too. And, you know, they required the most booze on their rider, too, so I think it's going to be the biggest party.
We'll see. I don't know. If there's a sousaphone, I don't know.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. And then the Rita Collective, Kyle, I'll carry the load a little bit on this one. You can go back and check the old episode of the Rochester Indie Musician Spotlight with the Rita Collective. As Kyle mentioned, they're a world jazz ensemble, also featuring a lot of improvisation. Dean Keller plays the bass clarinet. Kristen Shine McGuire plays the marimba, not the xylophone. Key distinction there. Of course, Kyle plays bass, and Joe Parker plays on drums. Something that the Rita Collective's been doing for a while is Dean, their fearless leader, is booking acts with different guest artists. You have one in mind, or are you keeping it a surprise for us?
It's going to be a surprise. We'll probably post on the event page pretty soon, but we're trying to keep the interest up on all this, so
cool.
Can't reveal everything. We don't show all of our cards,
No,
right?
exactly. That would not be fun at all. And finally, the last week, that's Halloween night. You got something spooky in mind, buddy. What is it?
Well, we may have a return of the Lizard King.
Really?
So there may be a part 2 of the original Crystal Ship Band. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Alan Murphy and I have decided we'd like to do the second album of The Doors. And what better night to do it than on Halloween? Things could get spooky and weird. So, and to try to sort of stay in the tradition of doing at least one kind of album cover, you know, for that month, I think it's a perfect way to kind of to kiss everybody goodbye at the end of the month.
It's true. And no bad taste in our mouths either. Well, Kyle is very ambitious, putting together 5 shows for us. Again, Kyle's doing the thing where he's bringing hospitality to booking gigs, bringing some national acts to the Three Heads stage. Let's go through them all. First September show, we have on September 12th, John Medeski's Mad Skillet. October 3rd, these are all Thursday shows, we have guitarist William Tyler with a special guest who may be involved. October 10th, Amy Helm. October 17th, Futurebirds. On the 24th, the Rita Collective. And on the 31st, the second Doors album with the Crystal Ship Band. One more time, I'm Dan Gross. That's Kyle Vock, the Rochester resident for the month of October. We hope to see you every Thursday in October and that one Thursday show in September at Three Heads Brewing.